Welcome to the Energy for Life podcast, helping busy women reclaim their energy, innate power, and self-worth. Here is your host, Corona Brady.
Welcome back. Welcome to the Divorce Series, Part 2 of the Energy for Life podcast show. And I am your host, Corona Brady. I just want to begin this episode by saying thank you so much for such an overwhelming response to this series so far. And thank you for all the wonderful questions and just messages that have landed in my inbox since. And I'm going to do my best to answer them all, or as many as possible, over the coming series. So please feel free to submit your questions or anything you would like me to share on this topic. And you can email me at hello@coronabrady.com. I answer every single email. So in part 1, I asked you an important question in terms of where you are right now in your relationship journey. Maybe you are separated, divorced a long time, but you still feel quite emotional and triggered by your ex-partner. Or maybe you've had a realization for some time that your current relationship or marriage no longer serves you and you are utterly petrified at what to do next. Or maybe you're just wanting to understand more about this topic so that you can support a friend or a family member or a loved one in your life. Wherever you are on your journey right now, I truly hope that this series supports you. And please do me a huge favor today. I've no doubt that you know somebody in your life that's navigating a painful relationship breakup or separation or divorce right now. Please do me a favor and just send them this podcast episode today. So I shared on part 1 a little bit about my own personal story, and I spoke about the messages that my body was giving to me through anxiety, and then the realization that I had. Now, I just want to say this, and this is really important. It's actually crucial. I didn't just one day wake up and think my marriage is over. There actually had been a number of things that were not working in my marriage for some time. I also didn't just neglect and ignore those things. This is also really important to mention. We actually addressed these as a couple, as in we worked through these things, or we tried to. We did our best via couple therapy and counselling. And when that wasn't creating any change within, you start to question that. So at the end of the day, we were just really walking different paths. We had grown apart and really outgrown one another, which happens sometimes. Now, I'm not a quitter by any means, so it was really important for me to know that I had tried everything. I've had a few people reach out as they're at the point of questioning their relationship, their marriage, and they're wondering if they can see themselves growing old with their partner. Now, my question first and foremost here would be, have you spoken to your partner, your husband, about the issues within the relationship? A relationship is 50-50 and our partners can't read our minds, and we each play a 50% part inside that relationship. And if it's really hard for you to even have a conversation because maybe the communication has broken down, it's really important that you seek out professional support and you get the support and help to address those issues and you work through them together as a team. I also want to address here that a separation, a divorce, a lot of the time has to do with timing. Now, of course, if there's any kind of domestic violence or abuse of any sort happening inside the relationship, you need to get out of that relationship because your safety is on the line. What I mean by timing is this. So you may have a deep knowing and realization that your marriage is over. Perhaps you've tried couple therapy for some time and there's no improvement and it just feels like you're growing further and further apart. Like you're maybe two ships just passing in the night. And it's not as simple then as just kind of leaving the next day. First of all, you have to let that realization settle into your nervous system. And that can take a little while. And then it takes, because it takes time then to organize everything, because who you need to put first in all of this is yourself. You need to take care of and attend to your most basic needs. Your most basic needs of your water, home, warmth, rest, security, safety, food. And as per Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you can't do anything until these basic needs are addressed. Now, it may require also that you work with somebody to build yourself up, because if you're in a space of total disempowerment and a space where you really lack self-worth and lack self-belief, and you're in a space of total fear, anxiety and worry, again, you won't be able to make any decision from that place. I work with a lot of women at that space and place where they've maybe had the realization and clarity and awareness that their relationship, their marriage is over, but they are feeling so disempowered. They don't feel that they can walk away and create a new life for themselves. They don't believe in themselves. They're often in such a deep space of unworthiness, and they are in total and utter fear about their future. And I also work with women at the next space where the relationship or the marriage has ended, and they're now sitting in this space of the void. They are completely and utterly lost. This is a huge turning point phase. It's a complete and utter identity crisis. But there's so much growth opportunity in this. And I know this personally because I've been through it. It's like you're wandering around in a dark forest. You don't know who you are anymore now that your identity is no longer tied to this relationship or marriage. And it's crucial, it's so important that you surround yourself with like-minded people, with people who are navigating something similar or have navigated something like this in the past. I feel incredibly blessed because I had a lot of beautiful new friendships and relationships come into my life during that darkest year yet, and they've remained really great friends. I also had the unbelievable support of my sister, who had also navigated something similar in her life, and I also had the support of my family during that time. And even though they live on the opposite side of the world, I still spoke to them often, and many of them saw me at my most darkest of times. And I also had countless mentors and teachers supporting me during this massive transitional point too. Looking back now, I honestly would not have gotten through it all without their love and support. So some questions to reflect on and ponder today are: where do you honestly feel you are sitting right now in terms of the questions I asked you at the beginning of the episode? Has your relationship or marriage, has it been experiencing some trouble for some time? Perhaps the communication has broken down, or maybe the intimacy has disappeared. Does it feel like you're living two very separate lives right now? And what are you doing about this right now? Or what have you tried to do in the past about it? Or are you and have you been sitting maybe with this realization that your marriage is over? Have you tried everything in your heart to make it work or repair what has become broken? Or have you been separated from your ex-partner for a number of years, but you haven't let the past go yet? And so that's causing you to be stuck right now because you're carrying all of that baggage of that relationship into every waking moment. My question to you here today would be, what are you doing right now to heal, to let go of the past and to unravel the marriage? You know, separation and divorce are really, I believe, some of the most toughest experiences that you will probably ever have to experience. And you're going to have a range of really intense feelings and emotions, and you're going to have them at various stages of the separation and divorce. And some days you might even feel like you're going crazy. This is really normal. And some of those feelings might be just the fear of the responsibility now for your financial future and your children. If you have any, you're maybe scared about that responsibility. Or maybe there's some sadness about the breakup of the family unit. You no longer have that. Or you're maybe feeling anger or hate towards your ex-partner. Or you might be really anxious or nervous about how you're going to juggle work and home commitments. Or you could be feeling maybe even resentful about maybe some career sacrifices that you've had to make, maybe being in the role of homemaker. Or you could just be feeling a bit hopeless, a bit bitter, a bit flat, a bit depressed about your new circumstances. Or you could be worrying about the legal system, having to deal with that. Or there could be fear of total fear and panic of making the same mistakes again in your next relationship. Or you could be feeling really concerned right now that maybe the relationship with your ex will never repair itself and that you'll remain in this conflict forever. There's so much to be witnessed, and it's so important that everything within that that's witnessed is also felt. And the emotions can be so intense and they can be so painful, especially if you're not choosing to numb with stimulants or alcohol. And I just want you to know that those intense emotions, they're all perfectly normal. The great news is that when you choose to face all of these intense feelings, you will actually go on to live a fulfilling and happy life. And that might feel very far away right now for you. But here's the not maybe so good news. It actually takes time. You're navigating a massive turning point, a massive transition. And there's 3 important stages to a life transition. And I spoke about this on a couple of my podcast episodes, and please listen to these. The 3 stages of the life transition is we have to let go, then there's a pause, we're sitting in the void for a period of time, and then we begin. And a transition will take however long as it needs to take. You have no real control in that. You can't control it. There's some things in life that you can't control, and that's one thing you can't control. So I really encourage you to tune into the episode 23, Moving Through a Life Transition, on my Energy for Life podcast show, and episode 37, where I speak about those 3 important stages of a transition and how to move through them. And then I also feel that episode 41 will be a good one for you to listen to as well, where I discuss the signs of a midlife awakening, because a divorce and separation often happens at that point in our life. And you may already know what it feels like to grieve the death of a loved one. Maybe you've lost a family member, or you've lost a close friend or a relative. Well, separation and divorce is kind of like that. Some even say that separation and divorce is even harder to manage because of its complexity, and because it involves the loss of just so many things that you once had, and you actually have to grieve these now. And many of those things are just the routine and the structure and the unit of the family. And maybe if you have children, like the daily contact with your children, and also maybe the family home and what that provided for you and what that gave you. And a big one is your identity. You know, your identity a lot of the time is very much tied into the marriage and the relationship, and there's now a loss of that. So a lot of the time there is a huge identity crisis inside a separation and divorce. Friends, you know, sometimes we lose some friendships inside of that, and social life, and sometimes support, and just from our family, from the community. Sometimes what we lose inside of that is possibly the opportunity to have children. And another one is financial security, you know. and that can be a big one too. And maybe even betrayal. Maybe there's some betrayal there that you're feeling from your ex-partner, or you're not feeling like you have a really good support network, and maybe you've lost some of those close friendships or relationships, and people in the community even as well. And then there's even like the what you need to grieve is just the fear, the total fear of your future now, and of possibly, you're seeing your life now as living alone. And then there's just even all the practicality stuff that comes with that, especially if you have children, if there's children in the equation. And, sometimes there's just the full-time responsibility of the children, or sometimes there's changes in the nature of just some of those relationships. And it's a difficult time. Separation is an extremely difficult time. And I just really want to emphasize here today that you can expect to experience so many intense emotions. And there will be many times where you think that you just cannot cope, that you will be unable to cope. But just know what I said last week on the part 1 of this divorce series, is that you are a powerful woman, and that you have the capacity within you to always come out of that, dark spiral that you might enter into. And just know that you have that power, you have that strength as a woman. So, just really want to say as well is that, like, the path to divorce and separation, it's not a straight line, okay? And you're going to come up against extreme highs and extreme lows, and there's going to be so much grief, and there's going to be so much loss, and there'll be anger and frustration, and there'll be numbness, and there's going to be despair, and there'll be some days where you just feel hopeless, and that's all normal, and it's part of the process. Now, here's the thing. If you are choosing to avoid doing the real work right now, then there will be a big price that you will pay. And that price, sadly, often is to our physical and our mental health. There will be greater costs and consequences to your future. And the reality is, you cannot avoid the real work forever. You just can't. You can try to, but everything will just become harder. Life will become harder. Relationships will become harder. Work will become harder. Perhaps you might even give up on relationships altogether, and you might simply say they're not for me anymore. And it may just even become harder for you to get up and function. So just know that the amount of personal work that you choose to do during this time, it's crucial, and it will really depend on the success of your own healing and being able to move forward and create this really beautiful future for yourself. So I hope that this second part of the divorce series today was insightful, helpful, supportive. Reach out to me. Let me know what has helped you and what is helping you through these honest sharings that I'm giving through this divorce series. Let me know what you'd like me to cover in some of the next segments, please. And as always, if you know anybody that's navigating something like this right now in their life, please do me a big favor and get this episode to them today, because they might just need to hear my words. And also, if you've been listening to our show and you've been enjoying it and you've been getting a lot from it, I'd really appreciate it if you could jump on over to iTunes and just give us a rating. It's really easy to do, and leave a review. This is the only way that I can actually get this show to the hands of more and more women that badly need it. Thank you so much.